Hi, and welcome to today's Quick Hits webinar. My name is Jim Doyle, and today we'll cover the pre-built Power BI reporting that we provide for clients using NetSuite's SuiteProjects module for project management. So we'll be talking about how we can assist with financial and operational dashboards, timesheet and utilization analysis, plus project profitability and budget versus actual reporting. Quick introduction of myself. I'm a solution consultant here at Zone. So I work with new and existing clients to align our technology solutions to help them overcome business challenges. I have over 5 years of NetSuite experience, including working directly for NetSuite as a functional consultant. My background is primarily in supply chain management, but I do have experience working in field services organizations, as well as supporting tens, if not hundreds, of NetSuite clients in the services industry. So I'm very familiar with a lot of the practical reporting challenges that we do see in that space. And those challenges are summarized here. These are the challenges that ultimately led our founder to develop ZoneReporting, and they really ring true when it comes to project management reporting specifically. Starting with single level joins. So NetSuite natively has single level joins in its model. And so that can really restrict your ability to incorporate all the different types of records and transactions necessary to calculate something like project profitability. And not just project profitability, but profitability at the resource level, at the task level, all these different levels. Well, with Power BI, we have unlimited joining capabilities, really flexible, so we can make sure that we're connecting everything that needs to be so that we can get more accurate profitability calculations. We can also bring in budget or plan data via spreadsheets, a whole different, or, there's a whole different bunch of different ways we can bring in budget or plan data, but we can then view that using some of the similar segments I mentioned for our profitability reporting. And then even something like soft and hard pipeline analysis. So being able to look at opportunity data, CRM data, as well as active projects or pending projects, and incorporate everything into a single unified revenue forecast. We're able to do that even though those functional areas aren't really connected in NetSuite. We can define the joins that do that. And then we also can help with silos of information, whether that's across departments that are using different areas of NetSuite or even systems. There's hundreds of pre-built connectors for Power BI to bring in external data from apps for project management, timekeeping or time tracking, CRM data, field service management, spreadsheet data, like I mentioned earlier, and many more. We can join data from all these sources to give you one version of the truth across all your departments, and it opens up all the data you need to calculate KPIs when you're blending it with your NetSuite financial data. And then we also can help with, I would say, the ability to define business-specific KPIs and metrics. So Power BI gives us that flexibility. So we can calculate them the way that your business needs them to. We have a lot of pre-built functionality, but these are all just, think of them like templates. And so these are customizable. So whether it's productivity and utilization rates, or hey, you're tracking pretty granular time data and you want to use that to calculate these different rates in different ways, we can do that. We can look at project forecasted revenue and profitability based on actual data, along with some assumptions that we may want to make. We can also do trended and comparative analysis. We have pre-built time intelligence, so you can look at year over year, month over month, rolling or trailing 12-month, 3-month moving average, all these different time intelligences so that you can understand where your business is compared to a prior time period or trended, looking backwards. And then last but not least, Power BI has a ton of options for distributing these reports. So not only are we going to automate the report creation, we're going to get you out of Excel, but we're also going to then give you a platform that can send these reports out via email. You can use different metrics, and when you hit thresholds, it can notify individuals. You can embed these reports into dashboards, both in NetSuite and in other applications like Salesforce CRM. We've seen that before. It integrates with Teams, so you can chat or you can drop analytics into your chats. There's a ton of ways to get these reports out in front of the end users. Power BI is definitely an industry leader in that regard as well. So let's take a look at this. and I'll go to my demo slide here and switch over into the system. So I'm currently logged into Power BI. I'm logged in through the web version. There's also a desktop version that you could use. So I've got all my different Power BI navigations, and then I've got our pre-built report templates here on the left, which we'll hit in 1 second. But first, I'm just going to hit edit to expose our data model and talk a little bit about what we're doing with zone reporting. So here on the right, you can see we have essentially replicated the NetSuite data model, in this case, as it pertains to project management records. So looking at employees, looking at resources, looking at project charges, project tasks. So we're bringing in all that SuiteProjects data, and we have built the ETL to essentially bring that NetSuite data in under the appropriate table here in this data model in Power BI. So we've replicated it in Power BI, and then we also have measures that we can lay on top of this. And what these measures are going to do is essentially take that granular NetSuite data, which we're bringing in at a pretty low level of granularity, like the charge, individual transaction lines. And now we can calculate out specific metrics associated with that data. And that's what you're going to see on these dashboards as we start going through them, is these measures, which again, we can use to define metrics and KPIs the way that you need them. We've got our own base calculations, but as long as you can define the business logic, I always say this, as long as you can define the business logic and point to the data elements in NetSuite that are going to serve as the inputs to that, then we can build measures to help calculate that. Very flexible. And you can build your own reports from this page too. I could hit the plus sign here, open up a new page, and build reports just from the data model, or I could also modify the pre-built reports. So you're not just you're not restricted to what we're doing out of the box. This again is just intended to be a foundation, but really the value is in the data model and the ETL that we set up. All right, so here we see this is just an index, so you can see some of the different reports that we have. We can look at project snapshot, so looking at active projects, in progress projects, as well as closed projects and statistics associated with those, and slicing and dicing those in all sorts of different ways. We can look at utilization. I mentioned we have a bunch of different ways to look at hours worked and utilization and analyzing by resource or by project attributes. That's a pretty exciting report there. And then we do bring in that timesheet data, so we can get as granular as you need us to. We can give you a daily view of hours by resource with some heat maps, so you can see who's working more hours and who may not be. And then we also have financial reporting around profitability, project profitability, being able to look at actuals and forecast, looking at posting transactions, project revenue. We can look at open transactions associated with these projects. So a ton in here, and I'll go ahead and hit the high points. So this is our project snapshot. And what this is going to do is show me some statistics for all my completed projects. So we've got 196 projects that we've completed. I can see our hours worked, planned worked. I can see tasks, milestones, average project duration, average days early, late. And so that's my completed projects looking backwards. And then I have our current or in progress projects. And we can see we've got 92 of those, some similar statistics. Maybe I'd be looking more at the planned work for this. Average project duration. So this is actually encouraging that we see 20 days versus historically we've had 29 days, but we've been 11 days late. So it looks like our project timeline overall is starting to come down, but this is aggregated at the top level. So we're looking at all our projects. This is where our slicers come into play. So on the left, I can slice and dice this by a particular year. I can click, 2023, 2022, or I could look at a particular quarter or month, or we could do a couple weeks. I've got my project attributes here that I can slice and dice by. So I can look at, a specific project, or I can look at a project category. I can, filter to information technology. And now I can see, all right, here's the 12 IT projects that we completed in 2021. We've got one active project. Let's look at 2023. There we go. So now we've got 6 completed and 5 active. And then I've got some information just about those projects specifically. These reports are also drillable. So let's go to the next page and we'll drill into one of these here. So this next report, now we're just looking at our active projects. So I'm able to see 81 active projects, all those different metrics for those, and then I can slice and dice by my same project attributes or resource attributes. And I can see the number of projects that are in progress here. And I can look at this page a couple different ways. Right now, we're looking by project type. So I've got project type and project type here, but maybe I want to look at it by project category. And so you can see now we switched to category or item category. If you're associating items in NetSuite with these projects, then again, we're bringing all that in so we can start to look at these by item, or item attributes. And then I can drill into these as well. So if I hover over my sustainable development, I can see we've got 12 active projects, and I can drill through and see the charges associated with those 12, any purchase orders, sales orders, or related transactions. I can drill through and see the project tasks, timesheet data, and just, header project information. So here I've drilled through and I can see the top level project, those 12 projects that we have active that are of this category, start, end date, hours worked, planned work, status. We can see the resources that are associated with this. So a ton of information that we can access just by drilling through these reports. Moving on to utilization rate. And we always like to have our gauges when we're looking at different types of productivity and utilization rates. And then this lets me select the type of hours or the type of utilization rate that I want to view this for. And then we've got a heat map with all our resources so that we can see the results. So I could click total hours worked, and this is going to show me the total hours that all these employees have worked. I can drill down and see the role. I can see actually, let me drill back up. Here on the left, this allows me to set up a hierarchy. So right now we're looking at employee, but I could also click job type, and now we can see job type. I could click job title and then employee. And now I can open up the job type, see the title, and then within that, see the individual employees. So whether you want to look at this by employee, by job type, by attributes of that job, we can do all of that. And then I can look at, productive hours worked. These are all attributes of time entries that you would be submitting, billable hours worked, and the golden metric here, which is our billable utilization rate. And then we can look at those project timesheet actuals. This gives a summarized version, so we can see the total hours that we've worked per week. And I can see this broken down by project. And this is going to show me the resources that have been working on it, the percentage of the total hours from this week. So here we've got 34% of our hours we worked this week were on that project. The hours, and then the rank. This is going to show us which projects were worked on the most. So this one rank means that this project we put the most work into for this week as far as hours, as far as timesheet hours. So this helps you understand your distribution of time across your projects at a slightly summarized view weekly. But we can get down to the daily view as well. So this is a similar view, but now we're looking at that daily view. And so I've got daily hours worked by employee here. So again, able to zoom out and give you summary, and then able to zoom in and see individual as well. I have about 2 minutes, so I will quickly hit the last few here. This is going to show us our open transactions related to the project. So here I've got my open POs, open sales orders, and then we can also see our active project data. And then all of that is detailed here. Right? We actually had this was a report that was requested from one of our clients. And so we ended up building it and then baking it into the product itself. Here we're able to see profitability data. So I can see my actual based on actuals, right? Transactions in NetSuite, remaining forecasted based on plans, revenue, build, costs, labor costs, and ultimately our margin and our percentage. And then here we can just see that in a table view with some highlighting, whether it's a revenue or expense. And then last, we have a couple different views of profitability and of project revenue. Here we're looking at charges. So I can see project revenue charges, milestones. Oh, you know what? This is parsing out the revenue by your charge type. So now I can see those here. And again, I've got all my different categories depending on how I want to summarize these. And then the last thing I want to mention is when we look at SuiteProjects reporting, we also have a reporting package for CRM. We can do both. We can do one or the other. When you use them both together, though, what it does is it gives you the ability to look at your opportunity data, we see here on the left, and then essentially project what your future projects are going to look like based on that opportunity data. So we can see sales orders, revenue created off sales orders. And then I talked about pipeline analysis earlier. Here I'm able to see my soft pipeline, which is coming from the CRM, opportunity data, incorporating our probabilities and our weighted amounts. And we can also bring in projected hours. And then here on the right, we've got our hard pipeline, so to speak. This would be closed won opportunities where now we have projects that are associated with those. And when we combine them, we're able to see forward-looking revenue based on our soft and hard pipeline, CRM data and project data, which is pretty cool. And I think that brings us to the end. I used a little over my 15 minutes, but hopefully this was helpful. Just a couple key takeaways. I'd say when you look at these reports, keep in mind the flexibility. We can define these metrics pretty much any way you need to, and we can define our own join structure since we're controlling the data model. And so pretty much everything's on the table as far as how you may want to calculate your different indicators. And then we also can connect, you didn't see any additional data sources in these reports, but keep in mind, we could bring in, data from other systems. If you're not using, NetSuite CRM, you're using Salesforce, we could bring in that Salesforce data and give you that same kind of soft and hard pipeline analysis. That's just one example. There's countless. And then the reporting automation. Having these reports accessible and then being able to automate the distribution is everything. What good are reports if they're not getting in front of the end users in a way that makes them actionable? Appreciate everyone's time today. I'll hang on for questions. Feel free to reach out to me directly, or we have the link here. You can go to our website. We have information about all our products, including ZoneReporting, if you're interested in learning more. Thanks, everyone.